Hey everybody, it's Nick from GamersNexus.net, and I'm here reviewing Assassin's Creed Unity from Ubisoft. Assassin's Creed Unity is the first Assassin's Creed game to debut exclusively on the new consoles and obviously PC. I had actually played Assassin's Creed Unity at PAX Prime this past August, and found the game to be visually very stunning, not only in its effects, but also just how many NPCs it had on the screen, and their level of interaction and kind of like their body language and whatnot. So really that's held up well going over to consoles and in this full version of the game. The Parisian streets are just flooded with people who are rioting. People are having conversations outside, outside of restaurants. There's a lot of activity inside buildings as well, so you're not just going into the open world and wandering into these empty buildings. There's interaction there happening among the characters. This is a game that is different, definitely different from probably the last two installments of Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed 3 taking place during colonial America, and Assassin's Creed Black Flag, which was in the Caribbean in the early 1700s during the days of pirating. So those games relied much more on action scenes, and I don't just mean creep up on somebody and stab them. They had other ways of using action to provide satisfaction. That's not a part of Assassin's Creed Unity. So I think that sort of divides the audience based on where the series was headed. Some people are actually going to find it better that they can focus more on stealth, and having several different options to weigh when going into a stealth situation is good. Outside of that, there are other opportunities for exploration and kind of like puzzle solving. By that I mean that there are clues around the city, there are riddles and things like that that need to be solved, and most of it is just supplementary to the gameplay, but that's kind of how you'll occupy your time outside of the stealth combat. Let's talk a little bit about the storyline and the protagonist here. So the storyline begins with a young Arnaud in France, and his father is murdered, and he sees I believe it's a watch with a certain symbol on it. And so then 13 years later, he is at a soiree for his love interest, and he sneaks in because he's not on the guest list. Anyway, and so his love interest, who's Elise, who actually turns up repeatedly in the storyline, her father is murdered as well. So Arnaud's off to figure out who murdered these loved ones, I guess. And really, he kind of resembles Ezio, but overall I found him to be fairly likable. Let's talk about some of the mechanical improvements in Unity. First of all, there is a 2-button combination that is used for the Freerunning system. So you press, in the case of the Xbox One controller, R trigger and the A button to scale up a building, and then R trigger and B to scale down the building. It doesn't sound like the most intuitive way to control somebody when he's climbing, but it actually helps a lot in climbing down, because it basically ensures that you won't have fall damage. So that's really good to see. It's a fairly smooth process, especially when climbing down. You're just basically bounding from ledge to ledge. Another thing is that there is a crouch button. It can be toggled by holding down L, or you can you can tap L, the left trigger, to slip into cover, or you can just hold down on it and then release when you're done. So I like that as well. But still, I find the stealth system to be kind of buggy, kind of sluggish. It's really hard to, I guess, move from one cover object to another. I'm kind of surprised that we're at this point, 7 games into the series, where we don't have a fluid cover system. The mechanics of games like Gears of War and even Vanquish, I know that they're for shooters, but it's a lot more responsive. Okay, now I'll talk about the combat engine. Assassin's Creed usually has a simple layout of buttons to use for this. This is mostly the face buttons. X does one thing, A does one thing, B does one thing. And that's still true here. Whereas in other games you had a counter button, there isn't a counter here. There's actually a parry, so that, yeah, it acts like a counter, but it's more, I think it requires better timing. Arnaud will actually position the weapon correctly and so the animation will play out well according to the weapons that are being used. It looks better from that sense. You still use your X button to do the striking. The enemies they're less generic. I mean, each one will attack a little bit differently, especially since they're using different weapons. Items like smoke bombs and cherry bombs and the darts and things like that. Well, not the rope dart, but anyway, these kind of deployable specialty items are back. I didn't see enough of them introduced early on, so it kind of takes a while to get into that. Black Flag gave us things like the rope dart and some other items there that I liked using right away. So I wish I would have seen that variety kind of come out earlier. One thing, though, that I didn't like is the new aiming system. In other games, you would hold a button to go into a sort of over-the-shoulder mode. Here, you don't actually have your firearm out. You don't draw it. It's still concealed, so you have to just kind of aim as if you already had your weapon, and then you press the button, and then he pulls out his firearm and shoots. So I didn't like that. And besides the reticle, there really isn't a reticle. It's just like a tiny white dot. All right, so now I'll talk about a couple things I couldn't actually cover in the review, and that's some of the social integration. I'll just give a quick overview. So first of all, you have a sort of home base, which is called a cafe, that has a variety of rooms that basically you upgrade or you spend money on in order to actually gain money in return, gain investment, because it's a cafe, people will come to the cafe, and based on your upgrades, you accrue money. Which is good. So then, in other words, you're making money as you're playing the game. While this sounds cool, I really don't understand why I have to go back every time to collect my earnings. I actually have to travel back to my coffee shop to gain the money I earned. So I can't actually use that once I receive it to buy the next weapon that I want. I actually have to go back and get it. So I really don't understand that. Here are my closing thoughts on Assassin's Creed Unity. Again, it's a beautiful looking game, but again, there isn't that upfront value that I've experienced playing the other games. For somebody like me who likes the more action-based open-ended games, Red Dead Redemption, I just don't see it with this game so much. The stealth system, moving in and out of cover, it's just not doing it for me. I like the addition of the crouch button, but upgrades and player progression, this is a lot more detailed in Assassin's Creed Unity, and for the most part, it's a good thing. So instead of just picking out your costumes for Arno, you actually have per piece customizations. There are five categories of weapons, and the just varieties in each one is pretty captivating. So I like that a lot. Maybe wait until it goes on sale if you've played other games in the series. Otherwise, yeah, there are a lot of competing holiday titles. So this is one for consideration, but this isn't a must-have, in my opinion. And also, let us know what you think about Assassin's Creed Unity and the rest of the series. If you have any questions, feel free to type in a comment or a question, and we'll go ahead and get back to you as soon as we can. Thanks.